August 28, 1955. Money, Mississippi. A 14-year-old boy from Chicago is dragged from his great-uncle's house in the middle of the night. He's accused of whistling at a white woman. In 3 days, his mutilated body will be pulled from the Tallahatchie River. His name is Emmett Till, and his murder will change America forever. This isn't just a murder, it's a lynching. Emmett is beaten so badly his own mother can barely recognize him. One eye is gouged out. He's shot in the head. A 75-pound cotton gin fan is tied around his neck with barbed wire, and his body is dumped in the river. He's 14 years old. He's a child, and his killers will walk free. His mother, Mamie Till-Mobley, makes a decision that will shock the nation. She demands an open-casket funeral. "Let the world see what they did to my boy," she says. Thousands view his body. Jet magazine publishes the photos. And America, black and white, can no longer look away. The images are horrifying. They're supposed to be, because this is what racism looks like. This is what hate does. Emmett Till's murder becomes a catalyst. Rosa Parks will say his death motivated her to refuse giving up her bus seat months later. The Montgomery bus boycott, the civil rights movement accelerating, SNCC activists carrying his photo. Emmett didn't choose to be a martyr. It was forced upon him. But his death and his mother's courage helped spark a revolution. This is the story of Emmett Till, a boy who went to visit relatives in Mississippi and never came home. A boy whose killers bragged about murdering him and were paid by a magazine for their confession. A boy whose death galvanized a movement, and a mother whose grief became a weapon against injustice. This is that story. Emmett Lewis Till, born July 25, 1941, in Chicago, Illinois. His friends called him Bobo. He was outgoing, funny, confident. He loved pranks and jokes. He had a slight stutter, the result of polio as a child, but it never slowed him down. He was popular, charismatic, full of life. He wanted to be a professional baseball player. He was 14. He was just a kid. Emmett grew up in a working-class black neighborhood on Chicago's South Side. His mother, Mamie, was a single parent. His father, Louis Till, had died during World War II. Mamie worked hard to provide. She was protective, careful, aware of the dangers black boys faced. But Chicago, segregated as it was, wasn't Mississippi. Emmett had freedom northern black kids took for granted. He'd never experienced Jim Crow. Summer 1955. Emmett's great-uncle, Moses Wright, called Preacher, invited him to visit Mississippi to pick cotton and earn some money. Mamie was hesitant. She knew the South was dangerous. She'd grown up there before moving north. But Emmett begged. He wanted to see his cousins, experience the rural South, earn money. Reluctantly, Mamie agreed. Before he left, she warned him, "Mississippi is different. White people are different there. Be careful. Be respectful." "Yes, Mama," he said. He didn't understand. How could he? August 1955. Emmett arrives in Money, Mississippi, a tiny delta town. Population, 55. It's cotton country. Hot, humid, oppressive. Moses Wright's home is a small cabin, no running water, outdoor toilet. To Emmett, it's an adventure. He meets his cousins. They work in the fields. They fish. And Emmett, being Emmett, tells stories. He shows them a photo of a white girl from Chicago, possibly his classmate, and implies she's his girlfriend. His cousins are shocked. In Mississippi, that kind of talk can get you killed. Emmett doesn't grasp the danger. To him, it's teenage boasting. But his cousins know better. They warn him, "Don't talk like that here. Don't even look at white women. Keep your head down." Emmett laughs it off. He thinks they're exaggerating. He's from Chicago. He's confident. He doesn't understand that in Mississippi in 1955, confidence in a black boy is seen as defiance, and defiance gets you killed. August 24, 1955, late afternoon. Emmett and a group of local black teenagers, his cousins and friends, stop at Bryant's Grocery and Meat Market in Money. It's a small store that serves the black community. The owner, Roy Bryant, is away. His 21-year-old wife, Carolyn Bryant, is working the register. The boys go inside to buy candy and soda. What happens next will be disputed for decades. Carolyn Bryant's testimony, the version she gave in court and maintained for 60 years, goes like this. Emmett entered the store alone. He grabbed her hand and asked her for a date. She pulled away. He followed her behind the counter, put his hands on her waist, and made crude sexual remarks. She ran to her car to get a gun. Emmett and the other boys fled. As he left, he wolf-whistled at her. This is the story that justified his murder. This is the story that was a lie. Decades later, in 2017, recorded in a book published after her death, Carolyn Bryant admitted she lied. Emmett never grabbed her, never touched her, never made sexual advances. What actually happened? Accounts vary. Some witnesses say Emmett whistled, possibly to cover his stutter. Some say one of the other boys whistled. Some say nothing happened at all beyond Emmett buying candy. But whatever occurred, it was innocent, teenage, harmless. And in Mississippi in 1955, it was a death sentence. That night, Carolyn tells Roy Bryant what happened. Or rather, she tells him her fabricated version. Roy Bryant is enraged. How dare a black boy, a northern black boy, disrespect his wife? This is about white supremacy, about power, about enforcing the racial hierarchy through violence. Bryant decides Emmett must be punished, not arrested, not reported, punished, personally, lethally. Roy Bryant enlists his half-brother, J.W. Milam, a violent man, a known racist, a Korean War veteran with a reputation for brutality. Together, they plan. They'll go to Moses Wright's house. They'll take the boy. They'll teach him a lesson. Teach all the uppity black folks a lesson. They don't plan to kill him at first, or so they'll later claim, but they bring a gun. They bring a truck. And on the night of August 28, 1955, they go hunting. August 28, 1955, around 2:30 a.m. Moses Wright and his family are asleep. A truck pulls up outside, pounding on the door. Moses opens it. Two white men, Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam, are standing there, armed. "We want the boy from Chicago, the one who did the talking," Bryant says. Moses knows what this means. Black men taken by white men in the middle of the night don't come back. He begs. He offers money. He says Emmett didn't know any better. He's just a boy. He's only 14. Bryant and Milam don't care. They push past Moses into the bedroom where Emmett is sleeping. They wake him. "Get up, boy." Emmett's cousins watch in terror. Moses' wife, Elizabeth, pleads with the men. Bryant tells her, if he's not the right one, we'll bring him back. It's a lie. They drag Emmett out in his underwear. They throw him into the truck. Moses Wright stands at the door helpless, watching his great-nephew disappear into the night. It's the last time anyone sees Emmett alive. What happens next is reconstructed from Bryant and Milam's own confession, given to Look magazine in 1956, after they were acquitted, when they couldn't be tried again. They drive Emmett to a barn. They beat him, brutally, with fists, with pistols. They want him to beg, to say yes, sir, to grovel. But Emmett, 14 years old, terrified, in unimaginable pain, refuses to break. According to Milam, Emmett said he was as good as they were. That defiance sealed his fate. They decide to kill him. They drive him to the Tallahatchie River. They force him to strip naked. They beat him more. His face is crushed. One eye is gouged out, hanging from the socket. Then J.W. Milam shoots him in the head, once, execution style. To make sure the body sinks, they tie a 75-pound cotton gin fan around his neck with barbed wire, and they throw Emmett Till, 14 years old, son, cousin, friend, into the river like garbage. Bryant and Milam go home. They wash the blood from the truck. They act like nothing happened. Moses Wright, terrified, reports Emmett missing to the sheriff. The sheriff does nothing. For 3 days, Emmett's body floats in the Tallahatchie River, and in Chicago, Mamie Till-Mobley waits for her son to come home. August 31, 1955, 3 days after the abduction, a white teenager fishing in the Tallahatchie River notices something in the water. It's a body, bloated, decomposed, barely recognizable as human. The sheriff is called. They pull it out. The cotton gin fan is still tied around the neck with barbed wire, and they throw Emmett Till, 14 years old, son, cousin, friend, into the river like garbage. In Chicago, Mamie Till-Mobley receives the worst news of her life. Her son is dead, murdered. The authorities want to bury him immediately in Mississippi, standard practice to hide evidence, but Mamie demands the body be sent to Chicago. She wants to see her son. She wants to bring him home. When the casket arrives, officials warn her not to open it. The body is too decomposed, too damaged. Mamie refuses to listen. She opens it, and what she sees destroys her. Emmett's face is unrecognizable, crushed, swollen beyond belief. One eye is missing. His forehead is caved in from the bullet. His tongue is protruding. The top of his head is broken open. Mamie collapses. She screams. She can barely breathe. Her baby, her only child, has been tortured and mutilated. And in her grief, she makes the most important decision of her life, the decision that will change history. Mamie insists on an open-casket funeral. "Let the people see what I have seen," she says. "Let the world see what they did to my boy." It's an act of unimaginable courage. She will allow thousands to view her son's destroyed body. She will allow photographers to document it. She will let the world see the face of American racism. She will weaponize her grief. September 3 to 6, 1955. Roberts Temple Church of God in Christ, Chicago. Over 50,000 people file past Emmett's casket. They weep. They're horrified. They're enraged. Jet magazine publishes photos of Emmett's body. The images go national, and white America, many for the first time, see what lynching really looks like. Within days, Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam are arrested. The evidence is overwhelming. Moses Wright identifies them as the men who took Emmett. Witnesses place them near the river. The body has clear signs of murder. But this is Mississippi in 1955, and the defendants are white men accused of killing a black boy. The outcome is predictable. September 19, 1955. The trial begins in Sumner, Mississippi, county seat of Tallahatchie County. The courthouse is packed, segregated, of course. Black spectators in the balcony, white spectators on the main floor. The jury? All white, all male, all local. Defense attorneys tell them this trial is about protecting white Southern womanhood, about preventing outside agitators from telling Mississippi how to live. The prosecution's key witness, Moses Wright, Emmett's great-uncle, a 64-year-old black sharecropper testifying against white men in Mississippi. It's unheard of, dangerous. The prosecutor asks, "Can you identify the men who took Emmett?" Moses stands, points directly at Bryant and Milam. "There he is," he says, voice steady.
It's an act of extraordinary courage. Black people in the courtroom gasp. No one has ever seen this before. A black man pointing at white men in open court. The defense strategy is simple. Deny, deflect, dehumanize. They claim the body pulled from the river isn't Emmett Till. It's too decomposed to identify, they say, despite the initialed ring. They suggest the NAACP planted the body to create racial tension. They paint Emmett as aggressive, dangerous. They invoke white Southern honor, and they remind the jury, if you convict these men, you're siding with outside agitators and race mixers. September 23, 1955. After 5 days of trial, the jury deliberates. It takes 67 minutes. Some jurors later admit they would have reached a verdict faster, but they didn't want to appear hasty, so they took a soda break first. The verdict? Not guilty, on both counts. Bryant and Milam walk free. They smile. They shake hands with their lawyers. White spectators cheer. Black spectators sit in stunned silence. Moses Wright flees Mississippi that night, fearing retaliation. He never returns. The acquittal sparks national outrage. Newspapers across the country condemn it. Protests erupt. Black communities are furious, but not surprised. This is Jim Crow justice. This is what they've always known. But white Americans, particularly in the North, are shocked. They thought the South was exaggerating. They thought lynching was rare. Emmett Till's murder and the acquittal prove otherwise, and it radicalizes a generation.
January 1956. 4 months after the acquittal, Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam can no longer be tried for Emmett Till's murder. Double jeopardy protects them. So they decide to profit from it. Look magazine offers them $4,000, about $45,000 today, to tell their story. They accept, and in a shocking confession, they admit everything. The Look magazine article, titled "The Shocking Story of a Proved Killing in Mississippi," is written by journalist William Bradford Huey. Bryant and Milam describe in chilling detail how they abducted Emmett, beat him, and murdered him. They don't express remorse, they justify it. Milam says Emmett refused to show fear, refused to beg. "I just decided it was time a few people got put on notice," Milam says. They killed him to send a message. The confession confirms what everyone already knew, but seeing it in print, the killers openly bragging, profiting from murder, is devastating. It exposes the depravity of white supremacy. It proves that in the South, white men can kill black children with impunity. And it galvanizes activists. If the legal system won't deliver justice, they'll build a movement that will. Bryant and Milam believe their confession will make them heroes in white Mississippi. It doesn't. They're shunned, not for moral reasons, but for breaking the code of silence. Their businesses fail, they move frequently, they struggle. Roy Bryant dies in 1994. J.W. Milam dies in 1980. Neither ever faces legal consequences for murder. Neither ever apologizes. And Carolyn Bryant? She lives quietly in the South. For 62 years, she maintains her story. Then, in 2017, historian Timothy Tyson reveals she admitted she lied. Emmett never touched her, never threatened her. It was all fabricated. By then, she's elderly, unreachable, unprosecutable. She dies in 2023, never facing justice, never held accountable for the lie that killed a child. December 1st, 1955, Montgomery, Alabama. Rosa Parks refuses to give up her bus seat to a white passenger. She's arrested. The Montgomery bus boycott begins. Later, Rosa Parks will say, "I thought of Emmett Till, and I couldn't go back." Emmett's murder was 3 months earlier. The images of his body were still fresh. Parks and thousands of other Black Americans were done being patient, being quiet, being afraid. Emmett's death was a breaking point. In the early 1960s, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC activists, young people organizing sit-ins and freedom rides, carried Emmett Till's photo. They invoked his name in rallies. They said, "This is why we fight. This is why we can't stop." Emmett became a symbol, a rallying cry, proof that nonviolent resistance wasn't weakness, it was necessary courage in the face of murderous hate. Medgar Evers, NAACP Field Secretary in Mississippi, investigated Emmett's murder and tried to gather witnesses. 8 years later, in 1963, Evers was assassinated in his driveway. Malcolm X spoke about Emmett frequently, using his death to illustrate the brutality Black Americans faced. Malcolm said Emmett's murder showed that integration wouldn't save Black people. Systemic change was needed. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. referenced Emmett in speeches. At the March on Washington in 1963, the spirit of Emmett and countless other victims was present. King's "I Have a Dream" speech envisioned a future where children wouldn't be murdered for their race, where justice would be real, where Emmett's death wouldn't be in vain. When the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Voting Rights Act of 1965 passed, activists knew Emmett helped make this possible. His death and Mamie's courage in exposing it shocked enough white Americans that political will shifted. Not because of morality alone, but because the world was watching, and America couldn't hide its racism anymore. Emmett's story entered American culture. Books, documentaries, films, plays. Bob Dylan wrote The Death of Emmett Till. Toni Morrison referenced him in her novels. In 2022, the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act finally made lynching a federal hate crime, 67 years too late for Emmett, but passed in his name. Mamie Till-Mobley didn't want to be an activist. She wanted to be a mother. But after Emmett's murder, she had a choice: collapse in silence or fight. She chose to fight. She traveled the country, speaking at rallies, churches, schools. She told Emmett's story hundreds of times, reliving the trauma over and over, because she knew if people saw what happened, if they understood, maybe it wouldn't happen again. For decades, Mamie spoke about racial justice, about the cost of hatred, about protecting children. She worked with the NAACP. She earned a master's degree and became a teacher. She never remarried. She said her heart was buried with Emmett. Every interview, every speech, every public appearance was an act of grief made public, an act of love weaponized against injustice. In 1992, Mamie published her memoir, Death of Innocence. She wanted the full story told before she died. She wanted Emmett remembered not just as a victim, but as a boy, a son, a person. She testified before Congress. She attended memorials, and she demanded, always, that America reckon with what it did to her son. Mamie Till-Mobley died on January 6, 2003, at age 81. She never saw Bryant or Milam punished. She never got legal justice. But she created something more powerful, a national reckoning. She turned her son's death into a catalyst for change. She refused to let America forget. And because of her, Emmett Till's name will never be forgotten. Emmett's story didn't end with his death. It didn't even end with Mamie's, because his murder teaches lessons that are still urgent today. Lesson 1. White women's lies have historically been weapons of racial violence. Carolyn Bryant's false accusation killed Emmett Till. Carolyn Bryant Donham in the Tulsa Massacre. The countless lynchings justified by fabricated claims of assault. This pattern is centuries old, and it persists. We see it in Amy Cooper calling police on Christian Cooper in Central Park, in false accusations that lead to police violence. The weapon changes form, but the danger remains. Lesson 2. Mamie Till-Mobley understood something profound. People can ignore words, but they can't ignore images. The photos of Emmett's body forced America to see what lynching looked like. Today, videos of police violence, George Floyd, Eric Garner, Philando Castile, serve the same function. Visibility doesn't guarantee justice, but it makes denial impossible. Lesson 3. The justice system isn't inherently just. An all-white jury acquitted Emmett's killers in 67 minutes despite overwhelming evidence. This wasn't a failure of evidence, it was a success of white supremacy. The system worked exactly as designed, to protect white people and punish black people. Emmett Till's case proves that legal justice requires more than laws. It requires a society willing to enforce them fairly. Lesson 4. Emmett didn't choose to be a civil rights icon. It was forced upon him. He was a kid who wanted to play baseball. Trayvon Martin wanted to be a pilot. Tamir Rice was playing with a toy gun. They didn't volunteer for martyrdom. They were children whose deaths became symbols because America wouldn't stop killing them. We honor them by saying their names, but we honor them more by building a world where children don't become symbols. If you've watched this far, you know Emmett Till's story. You know a 14-year-old boy from Chicago went to visit family in Mississippi. You know he was accused of whistling at a white woman, an accusation later admitted to be false. You know he was abducted, tortured, murdered, and dumped in a river. You know his killers walked free. You know his mother's courage changed history. And you know it could happen again. Emmett Till's murder happened 69 years ago, but the pattern hasn't ended. Trayvon Martin, 17, killed for wearing a hoodie. Tamir Rice, 12, killed for playing with a toy gun. Ahmaud Arbery, 25, killed for jogging. These aren't the same as Emmett's lynching, they're the evolution of it. The methods change, the justifications change, but the outcome is the same. Black lives stolen, killers protected, families destroyed. So what do? We say their names: Emmett Till, Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice. We teach this history honestly, completely, uncomfortably. We support the Emmett Till Memory Project and museums preserving this history. We vote for prosecutors who will hold killers accountable. We challenge the systems that protect white violence and criminalize black existence. And we never, ever accept the lie that it's in the past. Emmett Till should be 83 years old today. He should have played baseball, gotten married, had grandchildren. He should have lived, but he didn't, because America valued white supremacy more than his life. We can't bring him back, but we can honor him by remembering, by fighting, by building a world where 14-year-old boys can whistle without dying for it. Say his name, Emmett Till. Say it and mean it.
Thank you for watching. Share Emmett's story. He deserves to be remembered.